Welcome to everyone who is signed on this evening. Got some exciting information for you again tonight. For those of you who joined us for UMBC and Penn State, welcome back. For those of you who are here with us for the first time tonight, welcome, welcome. The program that we're going to meet the scholars for tonight is the UNC Chancellor Scholars Program. And we're going to start off by turning things over to Ann Taylor Shaw, who's going to introduce. I just want a little bit of housekeeping for you all. Please feel free to jot any questions that you have as we go along in the chat, or raise your hand, do whatever you want to do, because we want to make sure that you get all your questions answered. Okay. So for now, while you're listening to Ms. Shaw, if you could just cut on your microphones to mute, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shaw.
Great, thank you so much. Let me get my screen sharing going here. And there we go. Oh, play. So hi, everybody. While that pulls up, my name is Ann Taylor Shaw. I am the recruitment coordinator for UNC Chapel Hill's premier STEM scholarship program called the Chancellor Science Scholars. And if you've already met the Meyerhoff Scholars and the Millennium Scholars at Penn State, we are a very similar program. So I'm going to tell you all about our particular program today, how we might be a little bit different from those other programs, and then give you all the information you need to be familiar with us and hopefully envision your future in a STEM program, either at UNC or at another college. But we have two of our great scholars here today to also share their experiences with you and give you any advice that they have to share and pass along to you in this particular stage of the journey that you're in. So before I get started, I'm going to let them introduce themselves quickly, and then we can get started. So Cynthia, you want to go first?
Yes. Hi, my name is Cynthia Plazas. I'm a junior at UNC Chapel Hill. My major is biology with 2 minors in chemistry and neuroscience. I'm part of cohort 6 of the Chancellor Science Scholars.
And hey y'all, my name is Yolanda. I'm also a junior in cohort 6 of CSS. I'm a biochemistry and neuroscience double major, and I'm from Hillsborough, North Carolina.
Great. So what is the Chancellor Science Scholars Program? Who are we looking for? Who are our students? And our students come from a lot of different backgrounds, but they have a lot of things in common. And those things that they have in common are a curiosity, a passion for STEM subjects, either biology, chemistry, engineering, physics, math, computer science, neuroscience, psychology, public health, any of these fields. And they're really passionate about using that interest to solve problems that we have in our world today. I think everybody can admit we have a lot of problems that need solving. So it's up to the future generations of scientists to use their creativity, to use their teamwork skills to work together and really help the rest of us get these problems solved. The motto of our program that we work to live by is, if excellence is possible, then good is not enough. And that just holds all of our scholars to a really high standard. It doesn't mean that we demand perfection in everything, but it does mean that we ask everyone to try their absolute best to put forth their best effort in whatever it is that they do. Because if you're doing your best work, then that is excellent. Just don't settle for good enough. To help our scholars, we think about the end goal that they're looking for. To focus on success, you have to begin with the end in mind. And that is one of the ideas that we got from the Meyerhoff program, begin with the end in mind. So if you know where you want to go, then you know the steps you need to take to get there. And you can work on those steps with a specific goal, career goal, academic goal, personal goal, whatever it is in mind. And to that end, we offer a merit scholarship that's renewable for 4 years. For students who come from outside the state of North Carolina, that scholarship is equal to the full value of tuition, fees, room, and board for 4 years. We have intensive mentorship and advising. Every single one of our students is paired with one of our 2 program coordinators and meets with them on a monthly basis to make sure that you are on track to take the classes that you need to take, to apply for the research internships that you need, to write your essays for graduate school applications. They're there to help you through everything. And not just the schoolwork, right? If you have a problem with a roommate or your car broke down, these program coordinators can help you solve any problem that you have. Our students have access to cutting edge research opportunities. Everybody always talks about how internships are so important to getting you hands-on experience in your chosen field before you go out and apply for jobs later. And for scientists, that hands-on experience looks like research in a lab, or what that lab looks like depends a little bit on your field, right? A computer science lab is not going to look exactly the same as a chemistry lab, and that research is going to look a little bit different. But getting those hands-on opportunities to develop solutions, to tackle problems, that is what our students have. And you also get academic support and career preparation. We offer free STEM tutoring to all of our scholars. So if you are a computer science student who needs to take a physics class, we have physics tutors for you. If you're a biology student who is struggling in organic chemistry, then we have chemistry tutors for you. All of that is free for our students because we want to help make sure that you have the most solid foundation possible to do the best that you can in all of your classes. We have 4 core values to our program that really define everything that we do. And one of those core values is a focus on undergraduate research. UNC is an excellent university to do STEM research. More than 60% of our undergraduates actually do research during their time here. We have world-class research labs. We have the #1 school of public health in the country who are tackling issues related to COVID and medications that can be developed to help mitigate the effects of COVID. So that's a very timely opportunity in that particular school. We also have opportunities across disciplines. For example, computer sciences. You can do research in computer science fields in virtual reality, machine learning, artificial intelligence, but every single discipline needs computational work done. And so sometimes our computer scientists, the students that we have in that major, do research in biology labs or in chemistry labs or neuroscience labs, and they apply some of their computational analytical skills to those other subjects. Because nowadays, science is increasingly interdisciplinary. No matter what field you go into, the likelihood that you will exclusively work in that field and exclusively work with other scientists who have that same exact background are pretty small. Physicists work with chemists and biologists work with engineers to tackle problems from a variety of angles. So the more opportunities that you have to work with other people in other disciplines, the more prepared you'll be to do that type of collaboration in the future. And the faculty mentors that students work with are really invested in their success. We don't just have undergraduates go into the lab and wash beakers, and that's the contribution that they do. Our faculty take an active role in helping the undergraduates develop projects, making sure they have real work to do, valuable work to do that contributes to the lab. And a lot of our students are published authors on research papers that come out of the labs from the work that they do there. So that's another great sort of perk to have on your resume or your medical school applications or your grad school applications later on down the road. Inclusion is our second core value that's really important to us. And coming as a program that's based on the Meyerhoff Scholars, that's really devoted to increasing diversity and inclusion in STEM fields, creating the best scientists for the world, regardless of any background that they come from. That's another thing that we're trying to do here at UNC. And so we want students to think, like, who is a scientist? If you think in your head of a stereotypical scientist, they probably look a specific way. They might be a man, they might be white, they might be old. But the reality is that scientists come from all backgrounds and everyone can be a scientist. If you have that passion, then we want to help nurture that and make sure that you are welcome, that you are valued, and that you are a contributing force in the field that you're going into. So scientists come from all backgrounds. Some of them are first generation college students. Some of them come from very low income backgrounds. Some come from ethnic backgrounds that are underrepresented in STEM fields. Some come from a gender background that's underrepresented in the field they want to go into. So there's a lot of different groups of people who are underrepresented in STEM fields in different ways, and we want to help prevent that from happening in the future. Scientists also study many different things, right? They're not always tied to a lab in a white coat staring at a microscope all by themselves all day. They have a lot of different interests. Some of them combine non-STEM interests with their STEM field. We have students who study music and neuroscience, or who study art and biology, and combine those things together into their research. Scientists have many different career paths once they leave their STEM education. They can become a research scientist. They become doctors. They can become policy makers in government. They can work for private companies. They can go into industry. They can become science communicators, helping to explain to the rest of the world what science is and why it's important. That is an increasingly important role of scientists. It's great to tackle a research problem, to create a vaccine or work on a solution, a cure for a disease. But if you can't explain to non-scientists what you're doing and why it's important, then a lot of people are going to miss the bigger picture of why this is really key. We see a lot of that today, right? Especially in this coronavirus pandemic, there's a lot of people that don't really understand what's happening or what the solutions are. And scientists need to be able, in very clear, plain terms, explain what's happening, so that everyone can understand and hopefully buy into the solution to the problem. And under all of these things, some of the most important characteristics for scientists is that they be leaders and problem solvers, because there are innumerable problems out there. There are diseases, there are inequities, there are technological challenges, there are environmental challenges. And scientists are the ones who determine what challenges get tackled, right? If you run a research lab, you get funding to solve particular problems. And that's one reason why inclusion is really important, because there are issues in the world that disproportionately affect different groups of people. And if those groups don't have a voice at the table when it comes to determining which problems get solved, then those issues are going to be overlooked. So this is what we want. We want students from all backgrounds who are going to bring their own experiences and perspectives to the table, their own priorities for what they think the problems that need solving are, and then do the work to actually solve them. Academic excellence is our third core value. So we're looking for academic excellence for students from high school, but we also want to make sure that they continue that once they get to UNC. All of the Bachelor of Science STEM programs at UNC are very rigorous. And so you've got to really be dedicated to your studies in order to be successful in those majors. As I mentioned before, we have the free STEM tutoring. We have dedicated academic advisors at UNC who work specifically with our students and understand both the demands of the CSS program and the rigors of all of the STEM majors, and know how to help students navigate all of those issues of figuring out what classes to take and when you should take them. We have graduate school preparation. We help students with their personal statements, with mock interviews, with helping them figure out which schools would be a good fit for the things that they're interested in. We have a special designation on the transcript that students get once they graduate to let everyone know that they have successfully completed this program. So everyone will know that you're a CSS laureate, which we spell out officially on the transcript. So people don't have to figure out what CSS actually means. It'll say on there. And then the fourth thing, it's hard to say that this one is the most important because they're really all important. But in my mind, this one is really key to the success of our students, and that is community. Because STEM majors are hard, right? They are challenging. You're going to take classes that just seem impossible. And if you are surrounded with a cohort of students who are all struggling through the same thing that you are doing, who can motivate you and challenge you to keep going when times get hard, then that alone will help ensure your success. The retention rate in STEM BS programs at UNC for the Chancellor Science Scholars students is about 90%, which is much higher than the national average and also much higher than UNC's average for students not in our program. That retention rate is about 38%. And part of it is just because you don't have the peer support and peer mentorship, really, to keep going. If you're a part of a team, it's much easier to succeed than when you're going at it alone. So to that end, we help our students focus on collaboration. Everyone comes in as a high achiever from high school, but you're not competing against each other. You're working together. Our students celebrate each other's successes. Later on, you'll see a slide that has our social media platforms on it. And we highlight student successes when they win awards, when they get selected for different things or get their research highlighted on campus. And just scrolling through the comments on those posts, you will see so many cheerleading comments from other people in the program. That's really very inspiring to me and really heartwarming to see that people actually care about other people's success, not just their own, but actually care about others. And to help you build that community, everybody lives together for your first year on campus. Sort of, in normal times, right? Not right now, but in normal times, everybody lives together on campus. You have a CSS roommate, you're all on the same floor of the same residence hall, and that helps you have that family during your very first year, you're home away from home. Some students keep living together for all 4 years. We have had groups of seniors get apartments off campus altogether before still living with their freshman year roommate. So sometimes that bond is really strong. We have cohort-wide and program-wide events throughout your time so that we bring everybody together regularly to get to know each other, to celebrate with each other, and to just socialize and have fun, because we really strive to make it a family environment. And now we have graduated 4 classes of scholars so far, who are spread out across the country in medical schools and grad schools and jobs, and they act as mentors and give guidance to our current scholars. So when we talk about a lifetime network, we really mean that, because we keep our alumni engaged once they leave. And to kick everything off, our program has a summer component prior to your first year on campus. So I know Meyerhoff and Penn State call theirs the Summer Bridge program, but at UNC, it's very similar, but it's called Summer Accelerator. But it's the same concept. It's a 6-week program on campus prior to the start of your freshman year, where you take 7 credits of classes, have lab tours, workshops, presentations, panels, all types of things designed to help you get to know your cohort better, introduce you to the resources that UNC has, and help lay the foundation to get you off to a really great start once your freshman year begins. There's also all sorts of team building and leadership activities to really help you develop as a group. In order to stay in good standing with our program, there's a few things that we ask students to do. One is to maintain a GPA of 3.0 or higher. You must participate in the Summer Accelerator. That is required of all students. You have to join a research lab by the start of your junior year, although many students will join earlier than that. That's the latest that we allow students to join. And the reason for that is because we also require that you write a research thesis. And if you start in a lab no later than the start of your junior year, you'll have enough research under your belt to be able to write that thesis and complete it and do a good job on it. You have to take at least 2 STEM classes per semester. Some students take more, many students take more, but you need to take at least 2, and that's to keep you on track to graduate. We ask that our students perform 15 hours of service each semester, and that is to help keep you tied to the community and to help you remember that ultimately at the end of the day, the science that we're doing is to benefit others. There's a lot of different things that could qualify as service for that. It could be volunteering to do stuff for CSS, such as giving presentations or STEM outreach at other schools. It could be something in the community, volunteering at a food bank or a church. All different types of things could qualify. So it's really a pretty easy requirement for a lot of students to reach. And then we ask that all of our students apply to at least 4 PhD or MD, PhD, or master's programs, depending on the field that you're in. You can apply to more. You can apply to professional programs like dental school, medical school, pharmacy school, whatever else it is that you're interested in. And you can also be looking for jobs in your chosen field. A lot of computer science students don't go straight into grad school. They'll go get a job for a little while first and plan to go back and get their master's degree later. But during your senior year, you will need to apply to at least 4 of these programs. And one reason that we do this is to help students graduate with options. In the early days of our program, we did not have this requirement. And we found that a lot of students were waiting until after they graduated to apply to the next step because they wanted to have a gap year. They'd been in school for a long time and they wanted a break before they continued in school for an even longer time. But when you do that, you're not on campus with all of the same resources that can help with the application process. And you're kind of going at it alone instead of going at it as part of this group. So we made the requirement in order for students to do that during their senior year so that they would be doing it together, so that they'd be doing it under the guidance and support of our program coordinators. And then they will have options. They can still take a gap year. Most graduate programs will allow you to defer your admission for a year, so you don't have to go straight into it. But you would already have those acceptances in hand rather than trying to figure out the application process after you graduated. So that's why we have that there. We can't require that you go to get a PhD or an MD PhD after you graduate because your scholarship is only 4 years long and we don't get to dictate what happens in your life after that. But we do ask that everybody applies because one of the goals of our program is to train scientists for these research programs. And we can't show that we're holding up our end of the bargain and doing that very well unless we can cite numbers of students who applied and been accepted. So that's why we have that requirement.
Ms. Shaw, if I can just interrupt you, there's one
Sure.
question in the chat about the service requirement, whether it's your choice what service you do or whether you have recommendations of what services people should do for their service hours.
So it's totally your choice. If you need ideas, so for example, y'all are not from the North Carolina area, you might not know what options there are in the Chapel Hill area. Chat with your program coordinator about that and they can help you based on things that you're interested in. They can help match you with opportunities and give you some ideas of places to look. So you won't be stuck on your own trying to figure that out. There will be help for you, if that makes sense. In order to become a Chancellor Science Scholar, students have to apply to UNC Chapel Hill by the university's early action deadline, which is usually around October 15th of your senior year. Unlike the other 2 programs that you've heard from, we don't have a separate application process specifically for CSS. In order to be considered for our program, you just have to apply to UNC. And there's a way on the common application in the UNC supplemental piece to indicate your interest in the CSS program, but that's not required. It just kind of helps identify your interest in the program. But we work very closely with the admissions office to review applications and find students who have applied to the university who we think would be a good fit based on interest, based on passion, based on academics and leadership experience. We look for students that would be a good fit, and then we invite them to our campus, or virtually this year, to interview with faculty, staff, and alumni of the CSS program. And then there's also 2 short essays, about 300 words each, so not very long, that help us understand a little bit more about how you are interested in contributing to diversity and inclusion in a STEM field, and also what research area you're interested in exploring while you're at UNC. And then about 2 weeks after that interview weekend is when we notify students of their decision. And then these are our social media accounts. If you want to read some more student experiences after you hear from Cynthia and Yolanda, check us out. We're there. We try to highlight things that our students do. And later in February, by the end of February, on our YouTube channel, there will be a ton of videos that we're creating for this year's selection weekend finalists, but they're going to be on YouTube, so they're available to everybody. And there's going to be videos dedicated to each STEM major at UNC that include interviews with a faculty member and current scholars. So if you wanted to learn more about what it's like to be a biology major at UNC or a computer science major at UNC, you can go and watch those videos and learn a little bit more about it. And we're also going to have a video on there from our current first year class, excuse me, our 8th cohort, about what it has been like to start college in a pandemic, because they started college in August, and what being part of CSS has done for them in terms of helping them feel like they're part of a university, even though they can't actually come here. So with that, sorry about that. It's about time for me to mute myself and turn things over to our 2 students to tell you a little bit more about their background, their interests, what they're doing at UNC, and answer any questions that you have. So if Cynthia, you want to go first?
Sure, yes, I can go first. So as I said earlier, I'm a junior at UNC. My interest in research started my spring semester of my freshman year, in which I took a course that my lab actually runs, in which they taught us a little bit about like introduction to research and different like techniques on how to like read a literature, like an academic paper essentially. And they just kind of gave us the rundown of what it would be like to be in a lab and do research. So having that exposure, I was able to do an internship with them over the summer, my freshman year. And I was able to just like get really into in a lab, do like with a mentor. And I was really able to just see what it is that researchers do specifically in the School of Public Health. And I've been in the lab ever since. Right now I'm doing more of an independent project with them, which is really exciting, and might lead to a thesis potentially. So I'm really excited to just my interest in, sorry, I think my mic like messed up a little bit. Essentially what my research interests lie in is environmental toxicology. So in the School of Public Health, there is a whole department on environmental sciences and engineering. So they really do a good job at tackling a lot of issues related to the environment and human health, which is what my lab is based on.
Cynthia, can you give us some examples when you say environmental toxicology? What kind of work do you actually, give us some examples of some of the stuff you do?
Yeah, for sure. So my freshman year, the project that I worked on was perfluorinateds, which are actually like chemicals that are found in a lot of different household products, which is like certain fabrics that are like supposed to be non-flammable. because they're really strong and they're really sturdy. But what they found out was that those were negatively affecting human health. And specifically, we looked at their effects in the placenta because we wanted to see how exposure to these toxicants was contributing to human health. And what we found was that they actually are associated with increased risk of preeclampsia, lower birth weight in infants, and a bunch of other issues. So that's like what we were working with that summer.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Okay, hello. Again, I'm Yolanda. I'm double majoring in biochemistry and neuroscience, and I'm a junior. So I think my interest in biochemistry really stemmed around my sophomore year of high school. I saw that some of y'all are like freshmen up. So sophomore is where I really started thinking about what I wanted to do in college. And I took my first chemistry class my sophomore year and I kind of fell in love with it. And I really just tried to nurture that interest as I went through my high school experience. And then I took a psychology class, which really kind of nurtured my interest in neuroscience. So when I came to UNC, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with research since I had two pretty varying interests. In my fall semester of my sophomore year, I joined a neuroscience and pharmacology lab where I do a lot of work with like mice models and brain imaging and looking at different expression as a result of alcohol dependency. And something that I've kind of been grappling with is if this is research that I want to do after school, or how I can use it as sort of a stepping stone to get there. So this summer, I had the opportunity to work through Johns Hopkins University with a virtual internship, and I looked in stuff that dealt more with pharmacology and biochemistry. Specifically, we were kind of looking at, there are these molecules in our bodies called metabolites, and depending on the expression, you can sort of get a good estimate of different diseases or illnesses that people have. So we looked at different metabolites in the body that helped us to predict the presence of COVID-19. So that was really cool, and it was kind of applicable. But what I'm doing right now is looking at different summer programs to sort of cultivate that interest a little more. I'm mainly interested in, after college, looking into drug discovery and pharmacology, and I have some interest in toxicology as well. But as it stands, the research that I'm doing is really applicable to most of my classes. A lot of the stuff that I'm learning, which is something that's really cool when you're in classes and you see it reflected in real life work, is super interesting. But that's me in my research.
If I can ask both students, what kind of things did you do in high school? You can see some of our people here are as young as sophomores, a couple of middle schoolers. What kind of things did you do in high school that you think sort of prepared you to take the steps that you took since you've been at UNC?
I can go since I'm already muted. So a lot of people in my cohort had done a lot of like research experience when they were in high school, but coming in, I personally didn't have any. So I think that's not something for you to freak out about. A lot of my interest really just came from what I was doing in my classes and asking my teachers at the time, like what they did in their science career, why they liked it, how they fell in love with it, and all of that. So it was more sort of a personal journey of me looking outside of my classes, but using the interest that I had in there in order to, I guess, fuel my interest. I went to governor's school my junior year, which is a program here in North Carolina. I think they have it in most states, but I went for natural science. And that was definitely it was a summer experience. It was like a 6-week program that really helped me to solidify my interest in natural science. And I know there's other programs here like Duke Tip and stuff like that. But if there are summer programs that you would want to take a part of that can really help you solidify your interest and figure out if this is really something that you want to do, I would encourage that. But also it's really just about discovering the path that you want to take and talking to any resources you have and doing your own outside stuff.
Cynthia, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure because I couldn't hear you. So the summer right before my senior year of high school, I did an internship at the School of Medicine at UNC. I'm local to the area, so it was really easy for me to get that opportunity. But I understand that like that's not applicable to everybody because everybody lives like in a different place. But I interned with the chair of the Department of Emergency Medicine. And basically, what the internship was about was getting high schoolers to get exposure into healthcare careers. So I was able to shadow a bunch of different health professions, doctors, nurse practitioners, nurse anesthetists, nurses, just getting like a good background into what it was to be a doctor or a health professional in the hospital, because UNC has so many like people working in the hospital, and it was just very easy to get a lot of experience just seeing them in like their day-to-day life, just working. And another part of the program was involved in helping them edit their safety modules, because the emergency, like the EMT and EMS department in general, they were looking at how to like make safer, how do you say it? Like just safer modules that not only the community but also health professionals could look at to treat pregnant women, so for maternal health and for child health, because they were noticing that at least in Orange County, those the statistics weren't very good for those two subset of the population. So they wanted to work to improve that. So I worked as kind of like the high schooler community member while they were doing this program. So that was just really cool, because it just helped me first learn to like network, because I had to like work with a lot of other people, but also get me exposed into like what the health professions were, because that's what I'm personally interested in. Well, at the time and like up until not too long ago, I was looking into medical school. By learning about the different health professions and everything, I have changed my mind, which is fine. And now I'm like looking into physician assistant school, which is a master's program. So that's really cool. And that's something I'm looking forward to in the future.
It's great. Thank you very much. So is there anyone who has additional questions, either that they want to put in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask them directly, that's fine too.
While we wait for people to think up questions.
We just got
go.
one. What is a piece of advice that Cynthia and Yolanda have for students entering college generally, as well as UNC specifically?
Yeah, I'll go. Let me think. So at least through CSS, it's a little different. So I'll try to speak generally. It's definitely a big transition from high school. You've come out of like this group of people that you've known for like the past 12 years most times, and you're kind of thrust into a new environment. So you really have to learn to take care of yourself in terms of like your mental health, how you're doing academically, socially, and it's a lot of things to balance, but it's absolutely not doable. Like you can manage it. I think one thing that's important is always being organized, like having a planner, kind of having your days scheduled out, especially when you're first in the beginning of the semester. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. So I think having a way to sort of modulate that and be able to visually see what you have to do is very helpful. That being said, too, your first year is your time to branch out. You know, normally in COVID times, non-COVID times, things will be a lot more in person and a lot more like up close and personal. But this is still the time to make lifelong connections. Your freshman year and like your first few years are when you're going to meet the most new people, make the most new relationships. And so that's something that will help you throughout your college career as well. So I think just being able to kind of take in the experience with open arms was really important. And at least through CSS, you'll be living with the rest of your cohort, and that bond that you create then it's inseparable. I'm still friends with pretty much everyone in our cohort, and we talk all the time, but basically just making those relationships and just looking out for yourself for that first year.
I love organization. That's a big one. Yeah. And also taking care of yourself. It was interesting. Yolanda, I hope I'm not giving out too much information, but when she came on today, she had just come out from working out. So, you know, you need to take that time when you go off to college to not only do the things to improve you academically, but to keep yourself going and keep your stress level going. And working out is an important one. So, Cynthia, what would you add?
For sure. So I definitely agree with everything Yolanda said. I would add that you should also put yourself out there. I know that it can be hard, like with, like for me at least, my school, my high school was like total, like all 4 years, like all 4 grades, like 1,200 people. So really small, like a very small local high school. But coming into UNC, there are like about 20,000 just undergraduate students. So that's like a huge jump, and it can definitely seem like a lot to take in, and it can be at times. But I think that you should really take advantage of the opportunities to put yourself out there, to meet new friends, meet new people, get the opportunity to network. It's really important to build those connections early on, because you never know when those connections will lead you to a really great opportunity like a summer program, or just a class that you really didn't know you wanted to take and you ended up taking it and it changed your mind about what you wanted to do in terms of your major. um, yeah, kind of connecting to that, don't be afraid to take classes outside like an interest. Sorry, it might really spike an interest and really tell you like, oh, maybe this is what I want to do. And you have the time to do that early on. So really take the opportunity to just go at it and have fun with your classes and everything.
Okay, there are a couple other questions in the chat, so I'm just going to throw them out. One of them is, are either of you active in other clubs and activities on campus now? So I know that the program is very challenging. Does it give you time to actually connect with other programs on campus?
Yeah, so my first like 2 weeks of my freshman year, I joined an a cappella group, well, auditioned and joined an a cappella group. And I've been with them the past 3 years. And that's definitely been like my home away from home when I consider CSS my home. Um, and I knew going into college that was something I wanted to do. Like you can join a sorority or an a cappella group or some other organization, but I knew that an a cappella group would be for me. I also do like a lot of volunteer work with different groups on campus as well. Right now I'm working with Rise, and I'm a mentor for one of my chem classes. And then I do mentorship through like the museum that's close to campus. Yeah. But joining other organizations is possible, and I would definitely encourage it as well, just so you can get sort of a broader spectrum of people to meet. I love to meet people. I love learning about their experiences, so that's why I really suggest it. But I definitely don't overexert yourself either. Like, don't join all of these groups because you feel like you have to. But if you find something that you're passionate in, I would definitely encourage joining them and checking it out.
Before COVID, and since my freshman year, I was in QAB, which is the university's like student organization board, and I was a part of the like membership team, or the what's it called? Sorry. So the parts, there's like subset of groups within the organization, and they organize concerts and activities for UNC students. So before COVID, that was really fun. It was really a great opportunity to just meet new people and just to have the opportunity to create good in a good environment for students, because we would give out free food or give out just like little giveaways, and it would just make their day better. I don't know. It was just like a nice thing to do that was non-STEM related. So that's what I try to like do outside of my clubs, of my like classes and academics, since a lot of that is very STEM heavy. I try to keep their interests. And starting last year, so my sophomore year, I started volunteering at the hospital. And it was really cool because I got to like work in something that like I had not had a huge opportunity to do beforehand, which is like translating. So translating for Spanish speaking parents coming into the hospital, like when they bring their children in a pediatric clinic, was something I got to do my sophomore spring semester. which is really cool. They sadly had to reduce those services after COVID because they were limiting the number of people that were coming in and out of the clinic, which is totally understandable. But now with things picking back up, I was able to come back to the hospital to be a COVID screener, which is like great because I think they really need it at the hospital. They have so many patients and visitors coming in and out that it's really essential to like try and limit the spread of COVID and try to keep everyone in the hospital as safe as possible.
A couple
Thank
of
you.
other types of clubs and organizations that our students are involved in include the Residence Hall Association, which is sort of the student governance aspect over all community residence halls on campus. We have students who create their own student organizations. One of our recent graduates founded an organization called Black in Technology because he saw that there was a gap in what the computer science department had to offer for students of color. So he and some friends founded this organization that's now huge. And the current president is now another CSS scholar. So we try to help our students make their mark on campus by getting involved and leaving it better than how they found it. And we've even had a couple of students be athletes and participate on sports teams for UNC. So there's really no limit to what you could get involved with on campus, even as a Chancellor Science Scholar and in a rigorous STEM academic program.
Wonderful. Now this is to the students. Is there anything you wish you had done that you didn't do that would have better prepared you for what you're going through now?
So for me, a kind of a revelation I had last semester. So when you first get to college and like you're getting into your major, a lot of times you'll encounter really hard classes and it's really tempting to just try to get the mindset of getting through them. But I think once I started to think about my classes as propelling me towards the like career path that I wanted, I started to enjoy them more. And then by default, I started to do better in them. So I think really just being deliberate about your mindset in these classes, like you're not just taking them to graduate necessarily, but you're taking them to learn about this career path that you're passionate about or the subject that you're passionate about. And just kind of not being too hard on yourself, because it's really hard to be stuck in that sort of mindset that you would have in high school. Like, this is where I need to be at. These are the grades I need to get. And while it might be helpful to have that in college, it's not going to be the same, but it's okay. Change is okay. And just because you're encountering certain troubles doesn't mean that you're not doing good or that you're failing. It just means that you might need to revise the approach that you're taking, which again is okay. It doesn't mean anything bad necessarily. So I think just I wish I would have had that mindset coming in and kind of enjoyed some of my past classes more like the way that I am now, because I'm finally really being thrust into my major with some of these classes and it's awesome. I'm having a great time. So yeah.
Great. I love that. Being easy on yourself too, a little bit. Yeah. Cynthia, do you have anything that you can think of?
Yeah, I think that it's good to have the end goal in mind, but it's fine to derive from that path a little bit to explore what you want to do, because you don't want to get to the end of your career, or like, let's say your undergraduate degree, like you graduated and you figure out that what you spent all of college thinking you were going to do isn't really what you want to do. And then you're kind of stuck in this post-grad like dilemma. So just really be easy on yourself and don't be too like strict about like, don't have tunnel vision. Like really look at all of the different opportunities that you have offered and take those opportunities if you can.
Okay. There's a question here about a professional STEM related organizations and joining them as a college student. Are there any organizations on the professional level that you all have joined?
I don't know if Cynthia can speak more to this, but we do have friends that have joined several professional organizations. So there are several like fraternities, so to speak, that are catered towards different distinctions. Like there's a chem one, there's a pharmacy one. I know these two because those were the two that I was looking at. Ms. Shaw, can you speak more to this? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the most that I know is like the fraternities that are more of like, I don't want to say social, but the type that are like the pre-med or pre-health fraternities is what I think would be the closest thing that I can recall for that. And I'm not in any of those, but that's the closest thing I could think of.
So there are some, I'm looking them up right now. We have a student who graduated 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now, who is pursuing a chemistry PhD at Berkeley right now. And she helped found a chapter of Nobuche at UNC, and that I can put it in the chat in a second. But it is a national nonprofit organization, professional organization, and it stands for the National Organization for the Professional Advancement of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. So it's a national organization that has chapters at different college campuses. And so that's a chapter that was founded at UNC. We have a student in computer science right now who is creating a student chapter of, I wish I could remember the exact acronym, but it's basically a student chapter of a national computational machine learning organization. And we also at UNC have a chapter of STEMcx, which is another professional organization for students of color in science fields. It's very active in our graduate school at UNC, but there are also undergraduates involved as well. And there's opportunities through these organizations to present research at conferences, which I should have mentioned earlier. But there's another scientific organization called Sigma Xi, and some of our students have been accepted as members into that organization following research presentations at that conference. There's also a national organization called ABRCAMS, the Annual Biomedical Research Conference for Minority Students. There's a lot of acronyms in STEM fields, and it is tricky to remember all of what they all exactly stand for.
Right.
But our students do have opportunities to go to those conferences, present research, posters, or sometimes even oral presentations of the things that they've been working on, and really network with scientists and other STEM students from across the country. They often meet up with other, Meyerhoff scholars or Millennium scholars at these conferences and eat dinner together and things like that. So it's just kind of a cool way to build camaraderie with other students and faculty members and professionals. You learn about different graduate school opportunities and make connections there that can really benefit you later on. So there are definitely STEM related professional organizations at UNC available to students. And when appropriate, we help students match up with those opportunities and encourage them to be involved there.
Wonderful. So I think I don't see any other questions in the chat. I don't see any other questions in the chat, and no one is raising their hand. So I think that means we are done. Thank you very, very much for joining us and sharing some great information with us. Best of luck to both of the students. Sounds like you're already ready to go. And so I was telling you earlier that I have a niece who was in the first cohort at the University of North Carolina in the Chancellor's Program. She is currently in medical school, doing well, and she was very well prepared by leaving the program there. So she was going to try to join us this evening, but she's in the middle of all that med school stuff. But she wanted me to pass on my best wishes to both students. And so I will do that. And if you all have any other questions that you didn't get to ask tonight, please email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I can reach out to Ms. Shaw at, later on and ask those questions if you don't get a chance to email her directly. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.